I never thought I would find myself in this situation, but here we are. My name is Jake, and I'm a 32-year-old husband who recently discovered the woman I thought I knew was hiding a dark secret. My wife, Sarah, and I had been married for 6 years. On the surface, everything seemed perfect. We had a cozy home, decent jobs, and a social life that revolved around friends and family. But as I soon found out, appearances can be deceiving. Things started to change a little over a year ago. Sarah began spending more time at the gym, which I thought was great. I supported her efforts to get fit and stay healthy. After all, we were both in our early 30s. Staying in shape is important. But then I noticed she was coming home later than usual, always with some excuse about a killer workout or how her trainer was pushing her harder. I shrugged it off at first. After all, who was I to question her dedication? But then the little things began to add up. I noticed she was more secretive with her phone. She'd often go to the bathroom with it and spend an unusual amount of time on social media. Just the other day, I overheard her on a call, whispering and giggling like a high school girl. It was strange, but I told myself I was being paranoid. Trust is essential in any relationship, and I didn't want to jump to conclusions without evidence. Then came the weekend when everything turned upside down. I had planned a surprise getaway for us to rekindle the romance. I booked a cabin in the woods and was genuinely excited to spend quality time together. I thought it would be the perfect opportunity to talk about our future, our dreams, and maybe even have some fun in an intimate setting. But when I tried to surprise her, I found her in a compromising situation that I would never have imagined in my worst nightmares. I had come home early from work, my heart full of anticipation. As I walked through the door, I heard laughter coming from our bedroom. The laughter was familiar and my gut twisted as I approached, dreading what I might find. I peeked through the slightly ajar door and saw Sarah, sprawled on the bed, wrapped in the arms of our gym trainer. Mark, they were tangled up in each other like they belonged together, and that was the moment my world shattered. The realization hit me like a train. I felt my heart drop, anger burning through my veins. I could hardly breathe. There they were, my wife and the man she had been spending so much time with, oblivious to the destruction they were causing. I barely registered how long I stood there, frozen in shock. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to make them both feel the pain I was feeling, but instead I quietly backed away. I needed to collect my thoughts before confronting her. I wasn't even sure if I could face her right then. Instead, I took a walk to clear my mind. Every step I took felt heavier than the last, and I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes. The woman I had trusted, the woman who vowed to stand by me in sickness and health, had betrayed me. I felt humiliated, angry, and heartbroken. I returned home hours later, my mind racing. When Sarah came home, a few hours after that, she was all smiles, completely unaware of the storm brewing. I steeled my nerves and decided to confront her. The look on her face when she realized I knew was one I would never forget. She went pale, a mix of fear and guilt washing over her. This was it. It was time to face the music. As Sarah stepped through the door, I could see her radiate that signature energy, her hair bouncing and a bright smile lighting up her face. But for me, her vibrancy only deepened the pit of dread in my stomach. She looked like a woman who had just had the best time of her life, completely oblivious to the reality that awaited her. I stood there, arms crossed, trying to keep my composure. I could feel my heart racing, my mind swirling with a cocktail of anger, betrayal, and heartache. "Hey, babe, you're home early," she beamed, tossing her gym bag onto the couch. My heart sank even further. The casual tone in her voice stung like a slap. How could she be so carefree? "Sarah, we need to talk," I said, my voice more steady than I felt. The smile faded from her face, replaced by a look of confusion that quickly morphed into concern. "What's wrong?" she asked, her brows knitting together. I took a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts. "I know about you and Mark." Her reaction was not what I had expected. Instead of the shock or denial I had anticipated, she froze for a second and then the mask slipped back into place. "What do you mean?" she asked, feigning innocence, but I could hear the tremor in her voice. "I saw you," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I saw you with him." "In our bed, Sarah, how could you?" The color drained from her face, and for a brief moment she looked vulnerable. I expected tears or at least some sign of remorse, but what I got instead was a defensive posture. "Jake, it's not what you think. It was just a moment. We were training and he was helping me with my form." She stammered, grasping at straws. "A moment." I shot back, my anger boiling to the surface. "You were straddling him like it was some kind of workout." "Don't treat me like I'm an idiot, Sarah." I felt the heat of betrayal coursing through my veins, igniting every nerve in my body. Her eyes darted around the room, looking for anything that might save her. "You don't understand. I've been feeling so down lately, and Mark was just. He was there for me. I didn't mean for it to happen, I swear." The excuses rolled off her tongue so easily, and each one hit me like a punch to the gut. I wanted to scream, to shake her and force her to acknowledge the reality of what she'd done. "You didn't mean for it to happen," I repeated, incredulous. "You think that makes it okay? You think that excuses this?" But Sarah, ever the master of manipulation, shifted scenes. "You know how busy work has been for you lately. You haven't been around. I needed someone who understood." Her voice rose, desperation creeping in. "I felt alone, Jake. I thought we were drifting apart." Her words were like knives, twisting the wound deeper. I had been focused on my job, trying to provide us with a good life, but I never imagined it would drive her into the arms of another man. I thought we were a team, but clearly I'd been mistaken. My mind raced, the emotional chaos crashing over me in waves. "Is that really your excuse?" I asked, my voice low and controlled, though inside I was a storm. "You chose to cheat instead of talking to me. You chose to betray me with someone I trusted." She opened her mouth to respond, but the words came out as a choked whisper. I'm sorry, Jake. Sorry." I wanted to scoff at her words, but I managed to keep my composure. The more I looked at her, at the woman who I thought had loved me, the more I realized that the woman I married was gone. In her place stood a stranger, a liar who had shattered my trust. "Sorry isn't enough," I replied, my heart heavy with a mixture of sadness and rage. "You've broken something that can't just be fixed with an 'I'm sorry.' I need time to think about everything." I turned to walk away, feeling like I was unraveling. I couldn't bear to look at her any longer. I needed to process everything: the betrayal, the lies, and the shattered trust. I walked into our bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared blankly at the wall. It felt like my whole life had been turned upside down in a matter of moments, and I was too stunned to react. I could hear Sarah in the background, moving around the house, but it was all a blur. The laughter, the warmth, everything felt like a cruel joke. My thoughts swirled around the memories of our life together, the moments we had shared. How could this be happening? How could the person I loved the most betray me like this? The emotional toll was suffocating, and I felt like I was drowning in a sea of doubt and anger. I had to make a decision, and I knew it wouldn't be easy. The woman I once adored had become someone I didn't recognize. The next step was crucial, not just for our relationship but for my own well-being. I finally lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what I wanted, what I needed. The next few days were a blur of feelings. I couldn't shake the sense of betrayal that hung over me like a dark cloud. My heart felt heavy, and my mind was racing with thoughts of how everything had changed in an instant. I was angry, hurt, and utterly confused. Sarah tried to talk to me, to apologize, but I found it hard to listen. Every word felt rehearsed. Every tear seemed fake, as if she were putting on a show for my benefit. I kept replaying the scene I had witnessed in my mind, the sight of her tangled up with Mark, their laughter echoing in my ears. It was a haunting reminder of how she had betrayed the trust we had built over those 6 years. I spent hours lying on our bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I had missed all the signs. I had been so focused on my work, so determined to provide for us, that I had neglected my own marriage. Sarah would cautiously approach me, her voice soft and tentative, as if she were afraid of setting me off. "Jake, can we talk?" she would say, but I would just grunt in response, staring at my phone or the TV, anything to avoid looking at her. I felt like I was living in a nightmare from which I couldn't wake up. One evening, after another tense day of silence, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, rifling through papers. I needed a distraction from the pain, so I started sorting through old bills and receipts. That's when I stumbled upon something I hadn't seen before. A small envelope had slipped between the pages of a magazine. It was from a hotel, and the date was just a few weeks prior. My heart raced as I opened it. Inside was a receipt for a room reservation, a name scribbled on it that I recognized: Mark. He had booked a room for 2 nights. I felt sick. The evidence of their affair was right in front of me, and the anger that had been simmering beneath the surface exploded. I crumpled the paper in my fist, a fresh wave of rage washing over me. She had been lying to me, and I had been too blind to see it. When Sarah came into the kitchen, she noticed my clenched fist and the crumpled paper. "What's that?" she asked, but I didn't even answer. Instead, I threw the receipt on the table, watching her face pale as she recognized what it was. "You've been lying to me, Sarah. You act like it was just some fling with Mark, but this," I gestured to the paper, "this proves it was more than that." Her eyes widened and she stammered, "Jake, please let me explain. It wasn't like that. I interrupted her, my voice rising. "What? You just got a hotel room with him? How do you think that sounds to me? You think I'm going to believe this was just some casual thing? You had to plan it, Sarah. You had to think about it long before it actually happened." I could see her crumble before my eyes. The tears rolled down her cheeks, and I didn't know if it was genuine sorrow or just more manipulation. "I messed up, okay? I was feeling lost, and I didn't know how to talk to you about it. Mark was just there, someone who listened, someone who made me feel good about myself." "Feel good about yourself?" I scoffed. "By cheating on your husband, that's how you feel good about yourself?" "I'm sorry, I never wanted to hurt you," she wailed. "Then why did you?" I shot back, my heart racing. "Why did you let it go this far? You could have talked to me, but instead you chose to sleep with him, to sneak around behind my back." In that moment, I felt a mix of sadness and anger that I had never experienced before. I wanted to throw something, to scream, but mostly I just felt exhausted. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. "I can't keep doing this, Sarah. I thought we had something real, something that would last, but now I don't know what to believe anymore." "Jake, please," she pleaded, taking a step closer to me. "I'll do anything to make this right. I love you, I really do." As much as I wanted to believe her, there was a chasm of doubt that had opened up between us, one that I wasn't sure could ever be bridged. The betrayal ran too deep. "Love isn't enough when trust is broken," I replied, my voice low and steady. "I don't even know who you are anymore." Her face fell, and I could see the realization dawning on her. It was the moment I knew I had to make a choice. I had spent days wallowing in pain, but now I felt a spark of something else: determination. It was time to take control of my life. I didn't want to live in this toxic environment any longer. "I need space," I said finally, my voice firm. "I need time to think about what I want. Maybe some time apart can help me figure things out." Sarah's eyes widened in horror. "You can't be serious. Don't leave me, Jake. We can fix this. Can we?" I challenged. "Can we really fix this? I don't even know if I want to." I felt a sense of clarity wash over me as I spoke those words. I was done playing the victim. It was time for me to take action. I'd been hurt, but I wouldn't let that define me. I would rise from this, stronger and more determined than ever. As I stepped away from the table, I could feel Sarah's frantic pleas behind me. But I kept walking. I needed to figure out my own path forward. In that moment, I wasn't just a betrayed husband. I was a man ready to reclaim my life. The next steps would be crucial, not just for my relationship with her, but for my own self-worth. It was time to find my strength. The days that followed my confrontation with Sarah were a whirlwind. I had established some distance between us, both physically and emotionally, which was necessary for my sanity. I decided to crash at my brother's place for a while. Jake was supportive and understanding, and it felt good to be away from the tension that had settled heavily in our home like a thick fog. Initially, I felt a sense of relief. I was away from the constant reminders of our broken relationship, the memories that now felt tainted. But as the days went by, that relief began to morph into an unsettling void. I found myself spiraling into a cycle of anger and sadness, replaying every moment, every lie Sarah had fed me. I missed the comfortable routine we had built, even if it was now tainted by betrayal. But I also recognized that I needed to change the narrative. I had to take control of my own life. I started focusing on myself. I hit the gym with a vengeance, channeling my energy into working out harder than ever before. I remembered how Sarah had always praised me for my physique when we first started dating, and I wanted to reclaim that version of myself. I joined new classes and even started running again. Each drop of sweat felt like a release, a step toward healing. I was determined to transform my body and mind, turning the pain into strength and resilience. As the weeks rolled on, I noticed significant changes. I was shedding the weight I had gained from stress, my muscles growing more defined and my confidence slowly returning. I felt empowered as I looked at myself in the mirror, realizing that while Sarah had shattered my heart, she couldn't take away my self-worth. It was liberating to be working toward something positive, to reclaim not just my body but also my spirit. But it wasn't just physical changes I was pursuing. I began to reflect on my life, my choices, and what I truly wanted in a partner. I started to engage more with friends and family, rediscovering relationships that had taken a backseat while I was wrapped up in my marriage. I went out for drinks, enjoyed dinners, and even joined a book club. I found joy in the little things again, enjoying laughter and camaraderie, things I had taken for granted. It was during one of those nights out with friends that I met someone new. Her name was Mia. We crossed paths at a bar and began talking about mutual interests, books, movies, fitness goals. There was an undeniable chemistry between us. She was funny, engaging, and her smile lit up the room. While it was unexpected, I felt a flutter of excitement that I hadn't felt in a long time. As we explored our connection, I was cautious but open, determined not to rush into anything. I confided in her about the turmoil I had experienced with Sarah, and she listened, offering support without judgment. I found comfort in her presence, and what started as casual drinks turned into something deeper. With Mia, I felt seen and appreciated for who I was, not who I had been in my past. But even as I embraced this new chapter, my thoughts would occasionally drift back to Sarah. It was hard to forget the years we had spent together, the laughter, the love, and the moments that had shaped me. I had invested so much into that relationship, and part of me still grappled with the loss. I knew I needed closure before I could fully move on. After a couple of months of space and self-reflection, I decided it was time to have a final conversation with Sarah. I thought it would help both of us to gain clarity and hopefully some form of closure. I reached out to her, suggesting we meet at a coffee shop, a neutral space where we could talk without distractions. When the day arrived, I felt a mix of apprehension and resolve. I didn't know what to expect, but I was determined to face this head-on. As I sat down at the small cafe table, I looked around, noticing how different everything felt since I had been there with Sarah. And then she walked in, looking tentative and unsure. I could see the remnants of guilt in her eyes, but also a flicker of hope that maybe we could salvage something. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was about to unfold. "Jake," she said, her voice soft and hesitant, "thank you for agreeing to meet." "Let's just get straight to it," I replied, looking directly at her. "I want to hear it from you. What happened? Why did you cheat?" She hesitated, looking down at her coffee cup before meeting my gaze. "I don't have an excuse. I messed up and I am so sorry for what I did. I was lost, and instead of reaching out to you, I turned to Mark. I can't express how much I regret it." Her words were filled with earnestness, and I could see how hard this was for her, but I knew the truth had to come out. "Do you really understand what you did to our marriage? It wasn't just a mistake. You lied to me, you betrayed my trust, and you shattered everything we built together." "I do understand now," she replied, her voice trembling. "I was selfish and foolish. I let my insecurities cloud my judgment, and I hurt you in the process. I can't take it back, and I don't expect you to forgive me." It was a moment of raw honesty, but it didn't erase the damage that had been done. I felt a mixture of sadness and anger wash over me. "I have been working on myself since we separated. I've realized that I deserve more than what you gave me. I deserve someone who won't betray my trust." Tears welled up in her eyes as she nodded. "I know. You deserve so much better, Jake. I'm truly sorry for everything." I could see the sincerity in her eyes, but I also knew that apologies couldn't mend a broken heart. "I appreciate your honesty, but I need you to understand that I'm moving on. I'm starting to build a new life for myself and I can't have you in it." Her expression shifted, a mixture of pain and acceptance. "I understand. I just hope you find happiness." As we parted ways that day, I felt a sense of closure I hadn't anticipated. The weight on my chest felt lighter. I had confronted my past, and while it hurt, it also propelled me into a new phase of my life. With my heart on the mend, I felt ready to embrace the possibilities ahead. I had learned that I was stronger than I thought, and I was determined to continue forging my own path, one that included real love and respect. And for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. After my heart-to-heart with Sarah, I felt a shift within myself. It was as if I had finally closed a chapter of my life that had been filled with pain and confusion. The conversation hadn't magically erased the hurt, but it had allowed me to release some of the lingering bitterness that had weighed me down. I was ready to look forward, and not just in the way of healing from betrayal. I was ready to embrace life anew. With that newfound clarity, I dove headfirst into my personal transformation. My workouts intensified, and I gradually began to see real progress in my physical appearance. I was shedding the remnants of stress and heartbreak, sculpting not just my body but my mindset. I wanted to be the best version of myself, not just for someone else but for me. Mia and I continued to explore our connection, and I found that being around her was refreshing. She was supportive, kind, and genuinely interested in my journey to redefine who I was. We bonded over shared interests, and her laughter felt like a balm for the wounds of my past. I appreciated the way she didn't rush me into anything. She understood that I was still navigating the aftermath of my previous relationship. As I spent more time with Mia, I began to realize how important it was to open myself up to new experiences. One Friday night, she invited me to a local art show that she had been looking forward to. I hesitated at first, still feeling a bit raw from everything that had happened, but she was persistent. "It'll be fun, just come and enjoy the evening," she encouraged. So I took a leap of faith and agreed to go. When we arrived at the gallery, I was struck by the vibrant energy of the room. The artworks were stunning, and as we wandered through the exhibits, I felt a sense of freedom. I appreciated the beauty around me, the creativity on display, and the laughter that flowed between us. After an hour of exploring, we found ourselves in front of a particularly striking painting. It was a chaotic swirl of colors that somehow blended together beautifully, evoking a rush of emotions. "It's like life, isn't it?" Mia mused, glancing at me. "Sometimes it feels chaotic, but when you step back, it all comes together in a way that makes sense." Her words hit home. I had been through my own chaos, and now I was slowly finding my way to clarity. "Yeah, I guess it is," I replied thoughtfully. I looked at her, and in that moment I realized I was genuinely enjoying myself. I hadn't felt this lighthearted in ages. As we continued to chat, I found myself laughing more and more. Mia had a way of making everything feel effortless. She didn't push me to share my past unless I was ready, and that understanding was a breath of fresh air. We spent the rest of the night talking, laughing, and even dancing a little as the music played softly in the background. By the end of the night, as we stood outside the gallery, I felt a sense of excitement brewing within me. Mia turned to me, her eyes sparkling. "I had an amazing time tonight. I hope you did too." "I really did," I admitted, a genuine smile crossing my face. "Thank you for inviting me. I needed this." As we stood there, a comfortable silence enveloping us, I felt an urge to lean in closer. I hesitated for just a moment, but then, emboldened by the warmth of the evening, I leaned in and kissed her softly. It was tentative at first, but as she responded, the kiss deepened, and it felt right, an affirmation of the new path I was carving out for myself. In the days that followed, our connection blossomed. We explored new places, shared our interests, and each moment together felt like a step toward something meaningful. I began to let my guard down, allowing myself to embrace the possibility of love again. But even as I moved forward, I still felt echoes of my past. I had moments where I'd catch myself thinking about Sarah and the hurt she had caused. I'd wonder if I was truly ready to commit to someone new. I didn't want to repeat past mistakes, and I wanted to ensure that I was being fair to Mia. One afternoon, as we lounged at a cafe after a long hike, I decided it was time to have an honest conversation with Mia. "Can we talk about something serious?" I asked, my heart racing slightly. "Of course," she replied, her brow furrowing in concern. "I really like what we have," I began, choosing my words carefully. "But I want to be upfront with you. I'm still working through some things from my past. I don't want you to feel like I'm not ready for this, but I also don't want to drag you into any of my unresolved issues." Mia studied my face for a moment before responding. "Jake, I appreciate your honesty. I get it. We've all got baggage. Just know that I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. I'm here to support you." Her understanding gave me a sense of relief. It was refreshing to be with someone who valued open communication as much as I did. I took a deep breath and felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Over the next few weeks, we continued to build a relationship grounded in trust and understanding. Mia encouraged me to confront my emotions, and I started to feel healed from the scars Sarah had left behind. I could still feel the remnants of anger and hurt, but I was no longer allowing them to define me. I realized that the journey I had embarked upon was about more than just finding love again. It was about rediscovering who I was and allowing myself to be vulnerable. I learned that it was okay to let someone in again, to allow myself to be happy despite what had happened in the past. And as I watched Mia laugh and smile, I felt a sense of gratitude wash over me. I had been through a storm, but I was emerging stronger with a brighter future ahead. I had transformed my pain into purpose, and for the first time in a long time, I was excited about the path I was on. As the weeks turned into months, my relationship with Mia deepened. I found myself falling for her in a way that felt refreshing and genuine. The walls I had built around my heart began to crumble, and I embraced the vulnerability that came with opening up to someone again. I realized that each moment we shared was a testament to my growth, a proof that I could love and trust again despite the betrayal I had experienced. One sunny afternoon, as we strolled through a local park hand in hand, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The flowers were blooming, and the world around us felt alive with color and potential. I looked over at Mia, her laughter ringing like music in my ears. It was in that moment that I knew I wanted to take the next step with her. "Mia," I said, stopping under the shade of a large oak tree, "I've been thinking a lot about us and how much you mean to me." She looked at me, her eyes bright with curiosity. "What's on your mind?" "I want you to know how much I appreciate your patience and understanding. You helped me heal in ways I didn't think were possible. You see me for who I am, not just who I was," I said, my heart racing. "And I want to see where this journey takes us. I'm ready to commit to you." Her face lit up with a beautiful smile and she squeezed my hand tightly. "Jake, I feel the same way. I've loved getting to know you and I'm excited about what's ahead for us." We embraced, and in that moment I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I was no longer burdened by the past but was instead filled with hope for the future. We spent the rest of the day in a blissful haze, talking about our dreams and aspirations, planning trips, and imagining where life would take us next. As the summer progressed, I realized that I had come full circle. The confusion and heartbreak I had experienced with Sarah had led me to this beautiful new beginning with Mia. I had learned so much about myself, about resilience, self-worth, and the importance of communication in a relationship. I understood that healing wasn't linear. It was a messy, beautiful journey that had taught me the values I would carry with me. The scars of my past would always be a part of my story, but they no longer defined me. Instead, they served as reminders of how far I had come. I had taken the pain and transformed it into something positive, learning to embrace love in all its forms. As I sat on the couch one quiet evening with Mia, our legs intertwined and a movie playing softly in the background, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. I leaned in and kissed her softly. "You know, I used to think I'd never be happy again after everything that happened with Sarah." She looked at me, her expression tender and understanding. "But look at you now, look at us now. You've come so far, Jake. I'm so proud of you." Her words resonated deeply within me. I had fought hard to reclaim my life, and in doing so, I had found someone who appreciated me for all that I was. With Mia, I felt complete and I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead together. Reflecting on my journey, I realized that sometimes life takes you through the darkest paths to show you the light. It taught me that love is about honesty, trust, and the willingness to be vulnerable with another person. The experience with Sarah had been painful, but it had ultimately opened the door to something beautiful. I had learned that true strength lies not in the absence of pain, but in the ability to grow from it. I was determined to carry these lessons forward, armed with the knowledge that I could face any storm that life threw my way. I was ready to embrace all that came next, knowing that love, real love, was worth fighting for. And as I watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I was no longer just a man who had been betrayed. I was a man reborn, ready to write the next chapter of my life with Mia by my side. Together, we would create a future filled with joy, love, and endless possibilities.